After my doctor's appointment was unexpectedly canceled, I figured I'd just head home early. Nothing felt unusual about that choice, but I was wrong. At 9:15, I heard a voice coming from my living room. From outside the window, I saw my son-in-law on the phone. His voice was low, controlled, but every word landed clearly. "It's done. The old man's brake lines are cut. We'll both be at his funeral tomorrow." My heart seized, but I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I recorded everything. I stayed still, listening, and what I uncovered next would shatter his so-called perfect plan forever. He believed his scheme was flawless. He had no idea I was already 3 steps ahead. I'm genuinely grateful you're here with me. Before we continue, take a moment to leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. It helps me feel connected to you no matter where you are. And a quick note. This story includes a few carefully crafted fictional details added for storytelling and educational purposes. Any resemblance to real people or places is purely coincidental, but the heart of the message is completely real. The doctor's office had called at 8:45, appointment canceled. I turned my truck around on Hawthorne Boulevard and headed back to Selwood, back to the bungalow I'd called home for 30 years. September in Portland meant the morning rain had just cleared, leaving the streets smelling of wet pavement and Douglas fir. I parked in my usual spot and noticed Ethan's black BMW in the driveway. Odd. My son-in-law rarely came by on weekday mornings. I let myself in quietly, out of habit. 30 years teaching literature had trained me to respect silence. That's when I heard his voice. It came from the living room, low, controlled, but it wasn't the warm, charming tone Ethan used around my daughter, Claire, and me. This voice was cold, precise, the voice of someone I didn't recognize. I froze in the hallway. "It's done, Mom," he said into the phone. A pause. "The old man's brake lines are cut. We'll both be attending his service tomorrow." The words struck me like a physical blow. My heart pounded, but another part of me took over. The professor's mind that had spent decades teaching students how to think clearly under pressure. Don't panic. Analyze. Think. My hand moved to my phone. I opened the voice recorder, fingers trembling, and pressed record. I held it toward the living room as Ethan continued, unaware. "Yeah, I know. But he was going to find out about the debt eventually. This way, we get the insurance money, clear everything, and Claire never has to know how bad it really got." Another pause. 750,000. "Mom, that's what the policy pays. We split it, wipe our accounts clean, and we're free." He laughed. Actually laughed. "I told him to visit Claire using the West Hills route tomorrow morning. You know that road. Steep, winding. When the brakes fail on those hairpin turns," his voice trailed off. "Yeah, a tragic accident. At least it'll be quick." My vision blurred. Not with tears, but with rage, tightly restrained by decades of discipline. I backed away from the doorway one silent step at a time. Years of wandering library stacks had taught me how to move without a sound. The hardwood never creaked. I was outside before Ethan ever realized I'd been there. I sat in my truck, phone clutched in my hand, holding the recording of my own son-in-law plotting my death. Not just Ethan, his mother too, Margaret Holloway, with her West Hills mansion and her quiet contempt for the struggling professor her son had married into. They'd planned it together. My wife Susan had passed 12 years earlier. The grief nearly broke me, but it taught me something. When you've lost everything once, you learn how to protect what remains. Claire was all I had left, and she'd married a man who wanted me gone. I glanced at the dashboard clock. 9:37. Ethan expected me home around noon. He didn't know the appointment had been canceled. He didn't know I'd heard everything. He believed he still had time. He was wrong. I had maybe 3 hours before he started wondering where I was. 3 hours before he and Margaret realized something had gone wrong. 3 hours to build a case so airtight they'd spend the rest of their lives behind bars. I took a steady breath, started the engine, and made my first call. Mark Reynolds had been keeping my vehicles running for 23 years. If anyone could tell me whether I was imagining things or facing real danger, it was him. I pressed his number. He answered on the second ring. "Mark, it's Thomas. Emergency. I need you right now." I gave him my location on 13th Avenue. "Bring your inspection equipment. 15 minutes." I sat there, watching Ethan's BMW still parked in my driveway 2 blocks up. He was probably inside my living room waiting to play the concerned son-in-law. Mark's service van pulled up exactly at 10 new shoes. He stepped out, stocky, grease-stained hands, concern written across his face. "Thomas, what's going on?" I didn't sugarcoat it. I think my son-in-law sabotaged my brakes. His expression hardened. "That's serious." "I know. I need you to check and document everything." He slid under my truck with his inspection camera. I watched the tablet screen as live footage streamed from beneath the chassis. 3 minutes later, Mark emerged, face pale. "Thomas," he said quietly, "your brake lines have been cut. Not worn. Cut. Someone used a blade and sliced them halfway through. They'll hold under normal driving, but the moment you brake hard, the pressure will blow them out completely." He held up the tablet. Even to my untrained eye, the damage was unmistakable. A clean, deliberate cut through the hydraulic line, precise enough to delay failure. "This was intentional," Mark continued, hands shaking as he saved the file. "Calculated. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing." He met my eyes. "Someone was trying to seriously hurt you." "I know. You need to call the police right now. I need more evidence first. I need to make sure he can't talk his way out of it." Mark stared at me. "You know who did this, don't you? Ethan borrowed my truck yesterday. Said he needed it to haul art supplies for Claire's studio. He had it for 3 hours. "Jesus," Mark muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Your son-in-law—" He stopped short. "The insurance policy, $750,000. "I already confirmed," I said quietly. "Claire is the beneficiary. If I were gone, Ethan would gain access through her." Mark's expression hardened. "I'll testify, court, police statements, whatever you need. Nobody gets away with this." I gripped his shoulder and thanked him. He looked at me, fear and resolve mixing in his eyes. "What else aren't you telling me?" I took a breath. "It's not just Ethan. I heard him on the phone this morning. His mother helped plan it." Mark's hands shook as he backed up the files. "Thomas, who could do something like this?" I met his gaze. My son-in-law and his mother. They came up with the plan. His next question hung between us. Why would Ethan do this? The answer meant going back to when I first realized something was terribly wrong. 2 months earlier, I'd noticed Claire changing. My daughter had always been vibrant. At 32, she ran her own graphic design business from a small studio in the Pearl District. She loved creating logos, websites, illustrations, and at our weekly dinners, she'd show me her latest work, eyes bright with pride. But that July, something shifted. She started losing weight. Not the healthy kind, the kind that comes from stress and not eating. The light in her eyes dimmed. Her smiles grew rare, then vanished. She stopped talking about her work, stopped sharing anything meaningful, and Ethan was always there, screening her calls, speaking for her, finding reasons she couldn't meet me alone. "Claire's exhausted, Thomas. Maybe next week. She's swamped with a big project. I'll have her call you. We're trying to spend more quality time together, you understand?" I understood. I understood my daughter was being isolated, controlled, manipulated. I had no proof, just a father's instinct screaming that something was wrong. So I did what professors do. I researched. I investigated. I hired Alan Mercer. Alan was a forensic accountant recommended by a colleague at Portland State who'd used him during a messy divorce. 60, methodical, discreet, the kind of man who could find financial skeletons buried deep. We met at a downtown coffee shop away from prying eyes. "I need to know about my son-in-law's finances," I told him. "Something's wrong with my daughter, and I think money is at the center of it." Alan didn't judge. He nodded and got to work. 3 weeks later, he called me back to the same cafe. The file he placed on the table was thick. "Mr. Carter," he said quietly, "your instincts were right." He opened the folder. Bank statements, credit reports, employment records, everything obtained legally through public records and credit checks Claire had authorized when they bought the house. Information Ethan had carelessly left unsecured. The picture was devastating. Ethan had been fired from his position at Cascade Financial Advisors 4 months earlier. Not laid off, fired. The reason, irregularities with client accounts. Plain English? He'd been using company funds for personal expenses and trying to cover it up. The firm let him go quietly to avoid scandal, but his career in Portland's financial sector was finished. "He's been unemployed for 4 months?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Yes, and he's been hiding it from your daughter. Every morning he leaves at the same time, rotates coffee shops and libraries, comes home at 6, and keeps the illusion alive. The deception alone was bad enough. Alan wasn't finished. His debt situation is critical. Credit cards totaled $185,000, some solely in his name, some joint with Claire. Luxury spending, expensive dinners, designer clothes, zero income. How is he making minimum payments? He isn't. Several cards are maxed out. Others are 30 to 60 days past due. Then the mortgage, 3 months behind. A pre-foreclosure notice went out 2 weeks ago. My hands clenched. Claire had no idea. She trusted him completely, handed him control of their finances, and he was driving them toward ruin while pretending everything was fine. "There's more," Alan said softly. "Search history." He turned his laptop toward me. The list was time-stamped and dated, pulled from Ethan's personal computer via shared cloud access Claire had innocently approved. Each entry chilled my blood. How to make a car accident look natural. Life insurance payout timeline after accidental death. How long do police investigate single vehicle accidents? Brake failure statistics by vehicle age. Widow access to life insurance funds. The searches went back 6 months. Methodical, planned. Not impulse. "There's more," Alan added. Text messages. He'd accessed phone records through the family account. Authorization Claire had given when she asked him to review their joint finances. The messages were between Ethan and someone named Bianca Sterling. At first flirtatious, then romantic, then explicit. An affair. But the message from 3 weeks earlier made my stomach drop. "Once the old man is gone and we have the $750K, we're free. Costa Rica by Christmas. Claire will be devastated. Makes it easier to leave her. You're sure this will work? Trust me. Old truck, old brakes, steep roads, tragic accident. Nobody questions it. We'll be on a beach in 6 months." My hands shook as I set the phone down. "He's not just cheating on Claire," I said, barely steady. "He's planning to—" I couldn't finish. "Yes," Alan said. "And there's one more thing. 6 months earlier, someone had called my insurance company pretending to be me, asking detailed questions about beneficiaries, payout timelines, and requirements for accidental death claims. The call came from Ethan's cell phone. Alan had the records. The cafe noise faded, the espresso hiss, the low chatter, the rain starting outside. All I heard was my own heartbeat. This wasn't just an affair or debt. Ethan was planning to eliminate me for the insurance money and abandon my daughter once he had it. "What are you going to do?" Alan asked. I thought for a moment. "Can you document all of this?" "Already done. It's all in the file." "Good." I stood. "I need to change my insurance policy today." By that evening, I'd contacted the insurer and restructured the policy. Instead of a direct payout to Claire, the $750,000 would go into a managed trust dispersed over 10 years. Monthly payments, no lump sum, no access for anyone else. Ethan would never know. I made sure of it. I called Alan that night. "It's done. The policy's restructured." "Good," he said, then paused. "Thomas, be careful. This man is planning something terrible. The searches, the messages, he's serious." "I know. Maybe you should tell Claire. Warn her. With what proof? If I told Claire her husband was drowning in debt and having an affair, she'd defend him. She loved him. And the moment I spoke up, he'd know I'd been investigating." I took a slow breath. I needed more time, more evidence, something undeniable. "Just promise me you'll be careful," Alan had said. I promised, but I wasn't careful enough. I thought I still had time. I believed Ethan was only planning, that I could keep gathering proof, build an airtight case, and shield my daughter from the truth until there was no other option. That was 2 months ago. This morning, standing frozen in my hallway, listening to Ethan's phone call, I understood he'd moved from planning to execution. The searches, the affair, the insurance calls, all of it had been preparation. Today was supposed to be the day I disappeared. Mark had given me forensic proof, but I needed more. I needed visual evidence, something that left no room for denial. Robert Hale had been my neighbor for 12 years, a retired accountant who lived in the Blue Craftsman 2 doors down. He kept his lawn immaculate, knew everyone on the block, and, most important right now, had installed a full security camera system after a package theft 3 years earlier. Those cameras pointed straight at my driveway. I walked to his house at 10:30. He answered on the second knock, coffee mug in hand, concern crossing his face when he saw me. "Thomas, everything okay?" "Robert, I need a favor. It's urgent." I kept my voice steady. "Yesterday, Ethan borrowed my truck. I believe he tampered with it. Your cameras might have caught something." His expression sharpened instantly, the accountant's mind still razor-sharp in retirement. "Come in." His home office glowed with 3 monitors showing live feeds from 6 cameras. He pulled up the archives. "What time yesterday?" "Afternoon, around 2. His fingers flew. The screens flickered to Monday, September 18th, 2 p.m. And there it was. Ethan's black BMW rolled into my driveway. The angle was perfect, high, clear, unobstructed. Ethan stepped out and looked around, too carefully, the glance of someone checking for witnesses. He backed my truck closer to the garage, positioned it, then opened his BMW's trunk and pulled out a black toolbox. Not borrowed tools, his own. "That's premeditation," Robert muttered. Ethan scanned the area again, then dropped to the ground and slid under my truck. The camera captured everything. The timestamp ticked forward. 2:03, 2:04, 2:05. "Can you zoom in?" I asked. Robert adjusted the view. You could see his legs, his arms moving beneath the chassis. At one point, a hand emerged holding a tool, metal catching the light, sharp. 18 minutes, Robert said quietly as Ethan slid out at 2:21. Nobody spends 18 minutes under a truck to check the oil. Ethan brushed dirt from his clothes, wiped his hands carefully with a cloth, checked his phone, typed a message, probably to his mother, then packed the toolbox away and drove off. Every second, crystal clear HD. "Jesus, Thomas." Robert turned to me, face pale. He couldn't finish the thought. "Yes," I said. He swallowed. "I'm copying everything. All angles, every frame." His hands moved fast. "And I'm calling my lawyer this afternoon. When this goes to court, I'll testify. I won't let him talk his way out of this." 5 minutes later, he handed me a USB drive. "It's all here. Time-stamped, dated, as solid as it gets." I gripped his shoulder. "Thank you." He met my eyes. "Be careful. A man who can do this is dangerous." "I know. That's why I'm collecting everything before I move." I walked back toward my truck, the USB drive heavy in my pocket. Between Mark's forensic footage and Robert's security video, I had Ethan cornered. Planning and execution, fully documented. But watching his face on that screen, cold, methodical, texting with satisfaction, sent a chill through me. This wasn't the charming man who'd won my daughter's heart or the smooth son-in-law who'd sat at my dinner table. This was a stranger, calculated, dangerous, a man who could spend 18 minutes sabotaging another person's vehicle and drive away without a flicker of remorse. That's who my daughter had married. Still, it wasn't enough. I needed Margaret to panic before the police arrived. At 11:15, I called Mark again. "I need one more favor, big one. Name it. Can you arrange a tow truck? I need my truck delivered somewhere specific, with a message." He understood immediately. "You're going after the mother. She planned this with him." 20 minutes later, I stood in a coffee shop parking lot on Hawthorne, writing carefully on a torn page from my notebook. The handwriting had to be deliberate, unmistakably intentional. "Dear Mrs. Holloway, this is a gift from your son Ethan. The brake lines were deliberately cut to eliminate me. I thought you should know what kind of conspiracy you've participated in. The police now have complete evidence, including this morning's phone call where you discussed my funeral. Sincerely, Thomas Carter." I folded the note once and handed it to the tow truck driver Mark had sent, a wiry man in his 50s who asked no questions. "Take this truck to the Holloway residence in West Hills. Ring the bell. Give the note to whoever answers. If you can film her reaction." He nodded. "You got it, Professor." The tow truck rumbled away, carrying my sabotaged vehicle like an accusation on wheels. At 11:30, I dialed Detective Laura Mitchell at Portland Police Central Precinct. She answered on the third ring. "Detective Mitchell, Major Crimes. My name is Thomas Carter. I'm calling to report an attempted murder by my son-in-law." A brief pause. "Mr. Carter, that's a serious allegation. I have a recorded confession, forensic video of brake sabotage, security footage of him under my truck with tools, and financial records establishing motive. I'm on my way to your office now." Her tone shifted, focused, professional. Understood. We'll be ready. Come immediately. I'll have a team ready. At 11:42, my phone buzzed. It was the tow truck driver. Professor, I delivered it. She read the note. Her face went completely white. She started screaming, in Italian, I think, and slammed the door. The truck still sitting in her driveway. Did you get video? Yeah, got all of it. Send it to this number. I thanked him and ended the call, allowing myself the smallest, tightest smile. Margaret knew now. At that very moment, she was probably calling Ethan, warning him, telling him everything was falling apart. They'd panic, they'd rush, they'd make mistakes, they'd try to run, destroy evidence, invent desperate alibis. But by the time they realized disappearing was their only option, it would already be too late. I started the rental car and headed toward Central Precinct, where Detective Mitchell was waiting. Perfect. Let them scramble. By the time they understood what was happening, every door would already be closed. I arrived at Portland Police Central Precinct at noon sharp. Detective Laura Mitchell met me in the lobby, a woman in her mid-40s, sharp-eyed, with 15 years of major crimes behind her. She led me into a small interview room with a table, 2 chairs, and a recorder. Mr. Carter, she said as she sat, walked me through everything. I laid it out methodically, the same way I used to structure lectures, chronological, systematic, impossible to refute. First, I played the recording from that morning. Ethan's voice filled the room, cold and unmistakable. It's done, Mom. The old man's brake lines are cut. We'll both be at his funeral tomorrow. Mitchell listened without interrupting. When it ended, she replayed it twice. Both voices? Yes. Ethan and his mother, Margaret Holloway. Next came Mark Reynolds's forensic footage, the brake line cleanly sliced halfway through. Mitchell leaned closer to the screen, studying the blade marks. Premeditated, she murmured. Textbook. Then I showed her Robert Hale's security footage, 18 minutes of Ethan beneath my truck, tools in hand. She watched the entire sequence, her expression hardening with every passing second. Finally, I spread Alan Mercer's financial files across the table, the debt, the affair, the search history, the fake insurance inquiry. How to stage a car accident, Mitchell read aloud from one page, then looked up. Motive and opportunity. You documented everything. I'm a professor, I said quietly. Research is what I do. She leaned back and exhaled. In 15 years, I've never seen a victim build a case this airtight. You've done our work for us. She stood and began making calls. Within 20 minutes, arrest warrants were being prepared for both Ethan Carter and Margaret Holloway. I want to be there when you arrest him, I said. Mitchell paused. That's unusual. He tried to kill me. I deserve to look him in the eye when he realizes he failed. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. We'll stage it. Go home. Act normal. Officers will be positioned outside. When you confront him, we move in. 2 o'clock. I thanked her. At 1:45, an unmarked sedan dropped me 2 blocks from my house. I walked the rest of the way, my heartbeat loud in my ears. Ethan's black BMW sat in my driveway. He was there, waiting. I approached calmly, keeping my face neutral. Through the living room window, I saw him sitting on my couch, relaxed, comfortable. He was waiting for me, waiting for news that I was dead. Before I stepped back into that house and faced him, let me ask you something. If you were in my position, what would you do? Would you confront the truth head-on, or walk away and choose escape? Share your thoughts. I read every comment because the next moment changes everything. And one quick note before we continue. The next part of this story contains a few dramatized elements added for storytelling. If that's not something you want to hear, you're free to stop here. I opened the front door and stepped inside. Ethan looked up from his phone, startled. For a split second, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe even disappointment, before the mask slid back into place. Thomas, I thought you had a doctor's appointment. I closed the door carefully and set my keys on the table, watching him. It was canceled. Something came up at the last minute. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Oh, well, that's good. I mean, it's good you're okay. Claire was worried when you didn't answer your phone. Was she? I sat in the chair across from him, my voice calm, almost casual. That's interesting, because she didn't call me today. His grip tightened on his phone. Tell me something, Ethan. I paused. When exactly did you cut my brake lines? The silence was absolute. Color drained from his face. His mouth opened, then closed. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone and pressed play. His own voice filled the room, sharp and damning. It's done, Mom. The old man's brake lines are cut. We'll both be at his funeral tomorrow. He sprang to his feet, the phone slipping from his hands and clattering onto the hardwood. Where did you get that? I came home early this morning, I said evenly. I heard everything. Your call with Margaret, your plan, your timeline, right down to which funeral home you discussed. The mask shattered. Rage twisted his face, fists clenched. You interfering old fool. You ruined everything. Do you have any idea what you've cost me? I raised my hand slightly toward the window. The front door burst open. Detective Laura Mitchell entered first, followed by 3 uniformed officers. Their weapons stayed holstered, hands steady and ready. Ethan Carter, Mitchell said clearly, you are under arrest for attempted murder in the first degree. He staggered back, hit the couch, and collapsed, fury dissolving into wild-eyed desperation. Wait. You don't understand. It was her idea. Margaret said he didn't deserve to be part of this family. She planned everything. I needed the money, the debts. I had no choice. 2 officers pulled him to his feet, turned him around, and secured the cuffs as Mitchell read his rights in the same calm, professional tone. At that moment, the front door opened again. Claire rushed in, her face pale with confusion. After my doctor's appointment was canceled, I decided to head home early. Nothing unusual, or so I thought. At 9:15, I heard a voice from the living room. Through the window, I saw my son-in-law, Ethan, on the phone. His voice was low, but I caught every word. It's done. The old man's brake lines are cut. We'll both be at his funeral tomorrow. My heart stopped, but I didn't confront him yet. Instead, I recorded everything. I watched, and what I discovered would destroy his perfect plan forever. He thought he was flawless. He had no idea I was already 3 steps ahead. Before we continue, take a moment to leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. It really connects us. And a quick note. Some minor fictional details have been added for storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to real people or places is coincidental. The underlying message is real. The doctor's office had called at 8:45. Appointment canceled. I turned around on Hawthorne Boulevard and headed back to my bungalow in Selwood, home for 30 years. September in Portland meant the rain had just cleared. The street smelled of wet pavement and Douglas fir. I parked in my usual spot and noted Ethan's black BMW in the driveway. Odd. He rarely visited on weekday mornings. I let myself in quietly. 30 years teaching literature had taught me to appreciate silence. That's when I heard him. His voice, low and controlled, was cold, calculated, a stranger's voice. It's done, Mom, he said. The old man's brake lines are cut. We'll be at his funeral tomorrow. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to think. Don't panic. Analyze. My hand moved to my phone. I opened the voice recorder, fingers shaking, and pressed record. I held it toward the living room. Ethan continued, oblivious. Yeah, I know. He'd eventually find out about the debt. This way, we get the insurance money, pay everything off, and Natalie never needs to know how bad things got. Another pause. $750,000. Mom, that's what the policy pays. We split it, clear our accounts, and we're free. He laughed, truly laughed. I backed away from the door silently, the hardwood floor not creaking. Outside, I held my phone tightly, recording my son-in-law plotting against me and his mother, Margaret Holloway. They had schemed together. My wife had passed 12 years ago, and Natalie was all I had left. I had about 3 hours before Ethan noticed I hadn't come home. 3 hours to build a case so strong that both would face the consequences. I called Dale Zimmerman, who'd maintained my vehicles for over 20 years. If anyone could confirm danger, it was him. I gave him my location, and he arrived at exactly 10 tons home. Dale inspected the truck and emerged pale. Graham, your brake lines have been deliberately cut, he said. Not worn, cut with precision. I told him about Ethan's suspicious use of my truck the day before. Dale's hands shook. $750,000 insurance. He borrowed your truck to do this. I confirmed with Natalie as the beneficiary. If I disappeared, Ethan would access the funds through her. Dale promised, I'll testify. Court, police, whatever you need. But Ethan wasn't alone. His mother had planned this with him. 2 months earlier, I'd noticed changes in Natalie. The once vibrant 32-year-old running her own design studio had grown withdrawn. She lost weight, stopped sharing work, and Ethan was always there, screening her calls, speaking for her, isolating her. I hired Alan Mercer, a forensic accountant, to investigate Ethan's finances. 3 weeks later, the evidence was devastating. He had been fired from Cascade Financial Advisors for misusing client funds, yet he hid it. Credit cards maxed out, mortgage behind, debts piling. He lived on nothing while pretending everything was fine. And then the searches: how to make a car accident look natural, life insurance payout after accidental death, break failure statistics, widow access to insurance funds. They went back 6 months. Text messages confirmed an affair with Bianca Sterling. 3 weeks ago, once your father's gone, we get the $750K. Costa Rica by Christmas. Natalie will be devastated. Old truck, old brakes, steep roads, tragic accident. Ethan was planning to kill me, cheat, and leave Natalie with nothing. I restructured the insurance policy that evening. Instead of a direct payout, the $750,000 would go into a managed trust over 10 years. Natalie would receive monthly payments, but no one else could access the lump sum. I had visual proof to leave no doubt. My neighbor, Philip Norwood, had security cameras pointing at my driveway. They recorded Ethan under my truck, carefully using tools. 18 minutes of premeditated sabotage. I arranged for the truck to be delivered to Margaret's estate with a note exposing their plot. She read it, screamed, slammed the door. Panic had set in. I called Detective Laura Mitchell. Within 20 minutes, arrest warrants for both Ethan Carter and Margaret Holloway were ready. At 1:45, I returned home cautiously. Ethan sat in the living room, expecting me dead. I confronted him calmly, asked when he cut the brake lines. His face went pale. I played the recording. The mask shattered. You interfering old fool, you ruined everything. The front door burst open. Detective Mitchell and officers entered. Ethan Carter, you are under arrest for attempted murder. Natalie arrived shortly after. I explained everything. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing for the husband she thought she knew. By evening, the case was secured. Natalie moved into a nearby apartment, started therapy, rebuilt her life. She reopened her art business. My truck was repaired. I shared the lessons I learned: trust instincts, watch for isolation and financial control, and recognize that age brings wisdom. Courage protects loved ones. Evidence matters, patience matters, and truth will always prevail.